Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast. I am still Baz Barrett, and with me is Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest, fresh from his daily activities, walking the hard streets in and around our undisclosed secret recording location, and also manning our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, whereby we are keeping you up to date with all of the Villa news, our rumours, some polls, opinions, plenty going on the Twitter page. Go and like, subscribe, retweet, send us nice messages because we always like receiving those. Or if you want to listen to the audio stylings of our dulcet tones, then you can check us out on our audio providers, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, Geezer, Deezer, also on FanHub, on some other places. Other search engines are available, but if you type us into Google, Talking to Trinity, you probably won't go too far wrong in terms of finding our audio episodes. Or you can watch us on our YouTube channel at Talking to Trinity. And you can play a game of roulette, because some of the videos we have live camera work of our live reactions to what we're saying, and others we don't. So if you want to take a chance in terms of whether you're going to see our beautiful faces and listen to our beautiful voices as well, close your eyes, press play. I mean, to be honest, that is basically what we do when we record, really. Press play, see what happens and see what we talk about. But in terms of things we can talk about, tenuous link to what we were talking about in a previous episode in respect of renaming stands. Plans have been announced in the last week or so about the North Stand and the proposals to rebuild now, because previously, when the scheme was announced back in April time, it seemed like it was going to be more along what Liverpool did, for example, in terms of, in effect, building over the top of the current stand, so keeping it largely structurally intact and keeping, in terms of some fans going to the games. But it looks like, from what's being proposed now, it's going to be a complete demolition job and rebuilt from scratch, and also linking in with the corner of the Trinity Road stand. Also the proposals for Villa Life, kind of in the where the car park is currently, for a rebuilt club shop, social centre, trying to engage the local community from what I could see of the plans. Long term, I think the aim is to ensure that if England are successful in bidding for the Euros in 2028, that Villa will be named as one of the host stadiums, and also for a cheeky European final, maybe, in terms of, if you remember far back, Villa Park, the last host of the European Cup Winners' Cup final, answers on a postcard for who was playing. So going out for consultation at the moment, fan consultation taking place during July, with the view of firm planning proposals submitted to the council later on this summer. So a bit of the detail we're still waiting for. But in terms of what you've seen of the plans, Will, what are your initial thoughts in terms of what is looking like the future of the North Stand?
Well, when you first mentioned the demolition and rebuilding, my first initial thoughts were, why are we talking about the Blues here? But then, I quickly realised
there's no rebuilding going on there. That's just in terms of they're just watching. In terms of, I'll throw Simpsons reference in. Do you remember the episode where Bart and Milhouse brought a factory? And Milhouse was left to look after the factory overnight. And then Bart came back in the morning and the factory had fallen down. And Bart said to Milhouse, I thought you were meant to be watching it. And Milhouse said, yeah, I was watching it. I watched it fall down. That's what's happening at St Andrews so far. There you go. 5 minutes in, Needless Blue Slam.
Yeah, it's a bit RIP, isn't it, with them at the moment? The plans look very exciting. I mean, I do. Looking at the plans and seeing the glass side, if that is meant to be a glass side, I do worry about the people who look stuck there forever because there were no stairs. It looks fantastic. It will only, obviously, increase the appeal of Villa Park as a venue for future European games, whether that's internationally or European Cup finals, as you mentioned. Be nice to have the social element there as well. Maybe a bit too far to travel for a night out, but who knows? Maybe we'll go on that jaunt, because we'll be able to get the train to the newly, or hopefully newly refurbished, Witton station, because there's talk about that being part of the redevelopment. Allegedly, Suarez and Edens have offered 30 million for the redevelopment of Witton train station, which you can only imagine would be very claret and blue, all things Villa, leading to a bigger Villa experience. And you've also got the new youth academy that's going to be set up, where the away fans coaches used to be, to provide opportunities to inner city children who maybe can't get to Bodymore Heath. It's a fantastic time to be a Villa fan. You do really feel that this is all very positive. We want to grow the community and engage the community, not just the team and the fans of the club. But it's something that's been long overdue, really, isn't it? You know, Aston train station previously had Welcome to Villa Park and little bits up there that could probably do with a bit more claret and blue up it. But I think the city in general probably needs more Aston Villa to it, especially when you get off the train in Manchester and the first thing you see is Welcome to Manchester, Manchester City stuff, Manchester United stuff and whatnot. You know that there's a city that's proud of its football team, or proud of two of its football teams. Okay, you don't get that in Birmingham at the moment, because you can only really be proud of one. But, you know, the West Midlands as a whole, there's a few teams up in that Premier League who are doing well or are on course to do well. Why not show off how great we are? Why not show off the here and now, the future, and also relive our past glories, as you mentioned on the last podcast, you know, and really incorporate that we are a club that is getting back on its feet. You know, there's that immortal line from the playoff final. The fallen giants are back on their feet. Yeah, back on our feet in terms of being in the Premier League, but we need to get back up to the standing of one of the top English football teams that we were previously, that challenges for honours, that can attract the best quality players. And we'll only do that by bringing in more revenue and having the facilities to support that as well, and make players and fans go, wow, bloody hell, look at what a club we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically, I agree in terms of the days whereby the only important thing in terms of the running of a club was what happened 90 minutes on a Saturday. That's long gone in terms of competing. As you said, there's commercial considerations that need to be taken into place. I mean, football now is, or the English Premier League in particular, worldwide fan base, worldwide in terms of TV deals, recognition. So you mentioned the academy. I think that's currently being built. I think that, from what I could understand, scheduled to open next year. And I think that is important, mainly, as you said, because of the opportunities for people to go and play at such good facilities who may not have the opportunity to otherwise do so. But also, as you were talking, it came to me that perhaps, whether I'm right or wrong in what I'm about to say, I think it's certainly more of a factor now that we were of a generation, maybe the last generation really, whereby when it came to what team you supported, it was largely, if you're based in Birmingham, as you said, two clubs in Birmingham, one or the other, usually, depending most often on family ties most of the time, or kind of geographical location as well played a part in it. But because the Premier League is such a global league now, lots of, and this is based on my anecdotal evidence of having no kids that I'm aware of, so that disclaimer is out there right now, a lot of youngsters kind of, you know, they got no issue with supporting, you know, kind of Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool, even like Barcelona, Real Madrid, you know, kind of other teams who, bit of a trek to go and watch, but they're just used to having so much football to watch, kind of, you know, on TV, streaming, other means available. Whereas I think we got like, if you wanted to watch foreign football when we were growing up, I mean, I think there was a Football Italia, maybe an hour kind of on the Saturday morning, or a game on a Sunday afternoon. There wasn't really that much opportunity to watch it regularly. And obviously now Sky and BT and other broadcasters have increased the amount of games available. But youngsters, in terms of choice of team, maybe not as closely linked to the local team now. So from a pure footballing perspective, Villa have made a point in the last few years of really taking time, effort, money to invest in the academy. You'll know a bit more about this in terms of your involvement in junior coaching, but from a football perspective, good idea in terms of having a state-of-the-art facility available for a wider pool of potential players. You mentioned maybe not be able to get to Bodymoor Heath, but easier to get to Villa. And also in terms of when you're, well, depending what way you walk, I guess, but you can see the stadium, when you're on your way to the practice facilities. And we're rebuilding the stadium, as you mentioned, so it's only going to be even more impressive when that's complete. I mean, it's pretty impressive now, to be fair. I mean, obviously we're biased, but it's one of those classic old school stadiums. So having that facility there, pretty much a stone's throw away from the stadium, from a footballing perspective, I think it's a very good idea, as well as perhaps the priorities which are more important in terms of getting more youngsters involved in the game who would not have that opportunity previously. So strong fan base, strong academy, only good for the club. Transport issues, I mean, it's an issue. I mean, won't turn this too much kind of into a political podcast, but this may be me perhaps remembering a happier time. But back in the day, there used to be more trains. So there was less issue in terms of getting a train back from the ground. But a situation over the last few years that has developed for what we'll euphemistically call perhaps not footballing reasons, but there's less trains and there's more people going to the game. So there's issues because there aren't enough trains. And in terms of first step has to be, and this is kind of a political question I'm not going to throw the answers to, but if there's no pressure on local train companies who've been awarded their franchises to put on a couple of extra trains when there's a match day, that's going to be the biggest incentive. It's kind of ultimately, in terms of football fans, do get a bit of a rough deal in political quarters, seen as the problem rather than the contributing to the solution. But that's the easiest. You can have the nicest station, Witten. If that was refurb, needs some refurb, that'd be good. Aston, that'd be good, get some refurb. But if you've got no trains there, then you can have the nicest stadium in the world. So I think in terms of the transport, there needs to be political pressure. How that's applied, we'll leave that to our sister podcast, Talk of the Commons. But in terms of that transport issue, the simplest answer is more trains, really. And how that happens, obviously decide. Buses. I don't see how you couldn't have a shuttle bus. There used to be, from what I can remember, in terms of there used to be buses running from North to South Midlands. You had to obviously pay for them, but they used to stop at different locations. You could have a few more of those.
The other thing is, you go to Drayton Manor or you go to like Legoland or somewhere like that, and they have those tiny little trains where you've got about two people in a carriage up then, just driving down the Aston Expressway, from Bourneville or wherever, jump on, jump off. And if someone wants to jump on because they know it's on the way to like one stop at Perry Bar, then make them pay for it, let them jump off, pick up a Villa fan on the way, they can pay as well. There you are, you're in the ground. And afterwards, you've got to be quick. Yeah, it'll take you all week to get there on the little train thing, but have it,
Yeah, set off on a Sunday morning, get there for match day.
Yeah,
get the train back. Oh, you may as well go the whole hog. Kind of Monopoly, like those little pieces, like the little car. Yeah. Build a few of them.
Remote working. There's a lot of remote working now. Wi-Fi's everywhere. 5G, 6G. 5G's taking over and corrupting us all, isn't it? So sit on that, have your little 5Gs, you're tapping away, doing your work. No confidential phone calls, though, because of GDPR, STQRWXYZ. Mate, you're onto it. The other thing is, if you want to save on carbon emissions and carbon footprints, go and get a couple of Flintstone cars and car share, carpool them. You get there, again, you get there in a week, you'd have some blisters, but...
or get smaller shoes.
Well, yeah, what's a blister for the love of your club?
Yeah, and for the love of the environment. And,
hang gliding, just go right up really high and hang glide to Villa Park.
Yeah, I mean, isn't West Brom's ground the highest above sea level?
I don't know.
In England. It's quite high. So
it's the shittest.
Yeah, so it's like you get a shuttle to West Brom, top of the stadium, hang gliders. Yeah. I mean, it's closest in terms of Villa Park to West Brom is closest as the crow flies, closer than Villa and St Andrews. Just gliders. I think we cracked this.
If I was on top of the West Brom stadium, I wouldn't trust myself. I'd be leaning over the edge of it, and pissing on a corner flag.
Yeah, what's that place whereby you're kind of in, well, I say forest, maybe not quite a forest, but between trees and you zip wire.
Go ape.
Yeah, you can have that between, kind of high buildings. Just get people going up the top. Kind of what is it, Birmingham? Kind of the BT Tower.
Yeah,
zip wire.
Top of the QA. Straight across.
There you go. I think we got this sorted. I mean, in terms of, as we said, the consultation for the fans taking place next few weeks, we'll be putting those submissions in terms of zip wiring and paragliding and hang gliding and all sorts of other things. So we're doing our bit for the club. So get yourself online, or I think there are options to do it via pen and paper if you contact the club, I believe. So get yourself involved. I mean, in terms of, there you go. As demonstrated by this show, no idea is a bad one. So we'll see what we can do in terms of that. But in terms of the next step after that, talk of maybe redeveloping or upgrading the halt and the current Doug stand in terms of upgrading those facilities. I think there'll be some steps taken, as we mentioned in the background, to see what we're doing with the Doug Ellis stand. I mean, it was built for Euro 96 from recollection, so probably could do a bit of a upgrade in terms of facilities there. But we'll wait and see. And speaking of future upgrades, tenuously linked in to, is it the future of Aston Villa? We talked off the field. What about on the field scene in terms of the Euros under-19s final, which took place probably a week or so ago now, since we've last been on air? West Ham, they've always had they won the World Cup, in terms of Peters, Hurst, Moore in that team of 66. We can say we won the Euro under-19s final v Israel with our terrific trio of Aaron, Tim and Carney. So in terms of England 3-1 winners after extra time against Israel. So congratulations to all of the players, but especially the Villa ones, because obviously we were the most important. But in terms of the immediate future of the three Villa players, we've talked in previous podcasts during the off season in terms of loaning players out or keeping players in terms of in the first team squad to see if they have an opportunity to break into the starting 11. We've talked about all three of those players to a more or less degree. Does the fact that we've won a tournament and they've all contributed, has that changed any of your thoughts in respect of whether they should be staying as part of the squad, or if they're going to other leagues, where they should be going, or is it still pretty much business as usual for you?
I don't really know, to be honest with you. I mean, watching the game itself, the first half was like pulling teeth. Second half got a bit better. And then it was obviously very nice to see Carney and Rambo get the goals. And whilst you're celebrating Carney's goal, you do sort of remember, oh, hang on a minute, he's not signed a new contract. But it was nice to read about the influence of the Villa players and to see people like Henry Winter writing, giving glowing references to the three Villa players and what they did throughout the tournament. I think from the point of view of a player like Tim Irobenham, I'd really like to see him stick around the squad. However, if he's not going to get the chance to play, if Nakamba is the backup for Kamara, then the best thing we can do is give Michael Beale a call and say, here you go, mate. You know how we want him to play. Are you going to be playing the same sort of style as us? Yep, you are. Brilliant. Do you want Tim? You know, have him on loan for a year. Brilliant. Great. There you go. He's sorted. Rambo, where was he on loan last year? Was it Cheltenham?
Second half of last season was Cheltenham, yeah.
Yeah, you'd hope that he'd be up a league from there. I know he didn't set the world afire with the amount of goals he scored. In fact, I think he only got one, though he may have got two. But, you know, you look at Jacob Ramsey, he went to Doncaster, did really, really well there, came back, managed to break into the first team. Aaron Ramsey is meant to be better, potentially, than Jacob. So get him into the Championship, get him at a club where he will play regularly, maybe give Ryan Lowe a call over at Preston and say, here you go, do your magic with this one. And get him playing there where it's a little bit harder for him. But hopefully it gives him the opportunity to show what he's worth and to step up. And if you're sending him there to a Championship team like Preston, who have done good things for us before, don't insert the release clause in unless it's, say, for extreme circumstances such as injuries, you know, a plethora of injuries or a big COVID outbreak again. Let him stay there for the whole season and trust Preston with his development. Same with QPR. Though Irobenham, I think because of his Premier League experience, you'd want to have that recall option. Carney Chukwuemeka is a different one, isn't it? You know, it's very much the same as Douglas Luiz at the moment, where I think all Villa fans would love Carney Chukwuemeka to stay. They've seen in the Euros and in the under-23s and in other youth sides the ability that he has. There's no denying that he's a fantastic player. He's got that Grealish Pogba-ness about him where he can get on the ball and glide past people. He can create things. He hasn't quite replicated it yet on the big stage, but you don't expect him to jump straight in and be all singing, all dancing. It will take a while. Has he done enough to cement a first team place? Probably not. Has he done enough to get 10 starts next season? You'd hope he does get 10 starts across all competitions, if not more, if we get a bit of a better run, or he's doing well if he does a Jacob Ramsey himself. I really do hope that he signs a new contract. However, if we're coming up to the middle of August and he hasn't signed one, then I think you've probably got to cash in on him. You can't afford to wait around and hope that he will sign a contract at some point, because once January comes, you can have the big boys knocking. We've already heard that Barcelona have had chats with his agent, apparently, and that he turned them down, that Dortmund are sniffing round, that there's a lot of other top elite European teams that are sniffing round, including the likes of Man City and whatnot. You know, it's a gamble, isn't it? You've got the risk of losing him on a free come January, where he signs a pre-contract somewhere. Though, if he's played 20 games by then, will he be thinking, actually, my future does lie here? Or would you sell him before? And for me, I think we need a decision on him one way or another before the transfer window shuts.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, future will be decided one way or the other before then. And you mentioned game time. That's going to be the key factor, really, I'd say, in terms of if he's playing regularly for Villa, he's more likely to stay. I mean, it's not rocket science to say that. And if he's not playing, he's more likely to leave. But in terms of getting those games, I'm going to throw a couple of scenarios at you. Some are more fantasy than others. But in terms of, we will give you the best insight into football. In terms of, if you're going to be playing games, you need to be on the team sheet, one of those 11 players picked an hour before the game to go and start the game. If you're not starting 11, you're not playing. You pay us the big bucks for this. So in order to get into the starting 11, he needs to be ahead of other players in the pecking order. So in terms of the Villa players we've got now, Douglas Luiz, speculation about whether he's going to be sold in the summer as well. But in the scenario in which Douglas Luiz stays for another season, and we sign nobody else in midfield, so who we got now is who we start the season with. Do you play Chukwuemeka in that starting midfield on the first day of the season against Bournemouth, or within the first couple of games you see him kind of getting into the team, or is it still a situation at that stage where he's a bench player at best?
I think at the moment he's a bench player at best, considering that you've got players who are arguably better than him that aren't even getting a sniff, such as Sanson. I think the best that Chukwuemeka can hope for is to get ahead of him, which he has done, and get the opportunities. I think he's very lucky in many ways that we've now got the 5 substitutes rule that we can bring on. So if we're winning the game and we're winning quite comfortably, we can throw him on there. Or if we're chasing a game and we need some more creativity, you can throw him on there as well. There won't be many occasions where he won't be afforded opportunities to play. But I imagine for him, it's not just about getting onto the pitch for 20, 25, 30 minutes. It's about feeling that he's trusted as a starting player. And for, at the moment, say in this scenario, whether you're playing 3-2-1 as your midfield going forward or 3-1-2, Carney just doesn't get in for me currently, unfortunately. I'd love to be able to say that he did enough last season to be in there on the opening day of the season, but I don't think he is. He needs to replicate that England form, show that he can play as a central midfielder rather than a cam, maybe, for us. And who knows, come October, November, he may be showing enough to be a first-team player. I think if he plays as well as he did for the under-19s, he could very easily become one of the first names on the team sheet. I really, really do. But as things currently stand, based on what we've seen in a Villa shirt, no, not at the moment.
There we go. Scenario number 2, which is probably the most likely one out of 3, I'm going to say. We sell Luiz and don't replace him with any other midfielder. Mm-hmm. Same for you in terms of Chukwuemeka, in terms of bench player then?
Yes, but he would then become the first choice behind McGinn and Ramsey for me. I think in the eyes of Steven Gerrard, I think he's still ahead of Sanson there. Though saying that, if McGinn's out, he's probably more likely to put Sanson in, isn't he? Because of the experience, at least, a bit more of an experienced player, because JJ's still very new to the Premier League. He's got more chance of getting Ramsey out of the team.
Yep. Scenario number 3, final scenario. Bit of a curveball, this one. Maybe based on a chat we had off air beforehand. Luiz is sold. You have the choice of bringing in Conor Gallagher for 40, 50 million. But you're told you can have Gallagher, free run, no worry in terms of other clubs coming in. He's going to sign for Villa. We get the fee agreed, all sorted. But signing Conor Gallagher means 100% that Chukwuemeka leaves. Do you sign Gallagher?
Football is a cutthroat business, and it's one where you demand instant results nowadays. Yeah, Conor Gallagher's proven in the Premier League. I think it'd be a great addition. I think it'd cause you a couple of sleepless nights if we sign Conor Gallagher with John McGinn. but yeah, I'd have him, and I'd cut my losses on Chukwuemeka there. It's probably not going to be a very popular opinion. It's probably going to go down as well as Tyrone Mings as a defensive midfielder. But yeah, I would do. What about you? You're not going to get off scot-free with that last one.
What I'd say, I like Gallagher. I mean, when he played for Palace at Villa near the end of last season, I thought, especially in the first half, I thought he was a cut above in terms of some of our midfield options available. I think the five sub rule makes a difference in terms of getting experience. If you get a cop run, makes experience. For me, it depends on the price for Gallagher. I mean, in terms of if you quoted 50 million, I think that's too high.
30 million, and he would join you. He will sign. He wants a picture with the new kit tomorrow. 30 million, rising to 40, dependent on league appearances and winning European Cups, which will never happen. No, it will happen. What about that scenario then?
30 million, I'll take him. I think that's worth it. So then in that scenario, Louise is out. So you got Gallagher, McGinn, Ramsey. I'd try and throw a curveball in that scenario because I'd say to Chukwuemeka, you kind of first reserve in that scenario. Would I rather sacrifice, probably the wrong word. Would I sell Sanson or Chukwuemeka? Who would I sell first? I sell Sanson first. Just because I think in terms of, it's one of those double-edged situations. He hasn't played well enough. He hasn't played regularly enough to know whether he'd play well enough to be a regular starter in the team. So you can't say based on his performances that he's not up to it or not quite at the level. But the flip of it is because you haven't seen it, no, he's not good enough. And in terms of his, just in the age gap, I'd hazard a guess the potential is higher with Chukwuemeka than Sanson. So I'd try and throw a cheeky curveball in terms of I'd sign Gallagher, sell Sanson, and then have Chukwuemeka there first. But in terms of your point as regards whether it's one or the other, Gallagher or Chukwuemeka, I take your point. And, I think that's a good point in terms of Gallagher is, even though it's only one season at Palace, in terms of being first choice in the league, that's one more season than we got from Chukwuemeka. I mean, it's unfortunate in terms of Chukwuemeka, we haven't got a clause in that contract, kind of a year's trigger option at our instigation, because I would have sent him on loan and then brought him back next summer and said, look, we're going to give you a chance in the first team and we're going to see whether you sink or swim. We haven't got that luxury. It's a cutthroat decision, as you said, in terms of, especially with Chukwuemeka come through the youth team and also in terms of the performances that we talked about in the European Championships this summer. It depends on the price when we get to mid-August. If somebody comes in with 20 million and we can get Gallagher for your 30 million, then I would do the deal. Reluctantly, I would do the deal.
I think it's one of them, if you knew that Chukwuemeka would sign a new contract if you were to sell Sanson in your scenario, then you'd start offering Sanson out to teams, wouldn't you, really? Because of the potential that Chukwuemeka's got. Hopefully we see that realised in a Villa shirt, He's captained England during this tournament. He's shown that he can be a big game player for them. Came up with the goods in the final, effort that hit the post and also scored. So, yeah, hopefully we get to see a lot more of him over the years in the claret and blue of Aston Villa and nobody else.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I would like him to stay, in terms of, I don't think there's a scenario we're playing out, we want to sell him. I think we'd be pretty gutted if he went, but it's in terms of he wants to play and it's whether he can play. But one of the ways he could play himself into the first team on the first games of the season is having a good pre-season. And that tenuously links us on to our first pre-season game taking place, or games potentially, Saturday. What we suspect will be the first team, or those who are back in training, going to the Bescot, or is it the Poundland Stadium now? The Poundland Bescot Stadium. I think they've been sponsored. So our traditional pre-season game against Walsall. not really much to say that would fall outside the realms of wild speculation. So we're quite good at that. So we're going to delve in. So in terms of speculation in terms of kit, got no idea what kit we're wearing. Could be the training kit. Could be something else. Is there really anything too much we can say about this preseason game, or is it just a case of just see what happens on the day, get the minutes in the legs after a week back in training, and move on to our Australia tour?
I understand that they're going to be wearing body paint, claret with blue sleeves, white short body paint, and socks are whatever one is in rotation for the colour of socks it's meant to be. Actually, it won't be claret body paint because that will clash with Warsaw unless they wore their away kit. It'll just be a run out for them, won't it? It'll be giving the chance to the likes of those, as you say, who are back in training. And from watching the video yesterday, there's quite a few of the first teamers that will be wanting to hit the ground running. Chukwuemeka, Maker, funny enough, won't be there because he'll be having a rest, along with the other internationals such as Kamara, Emi Martinez. I can't remember whether I saw him in the return video yesterday. I think he was in there, but don't quote me on that. But you'd be hoping that Carlos gets a run out against Warsaw. You'd imagine that would be alongside Mings more than anybody else. Chambers also obviously back in training. You've got Conser, who's back in training, trying to get up to match fitness in time for the start of the season. I would assume that he would go to Australia with the rest of the lads and the internationals when that takes place. Ashley Young, our latest contract signing, will likely start left back. Freddie G's back as well. He said the past is the past. Is this the year that Freddie G doesn't go out on loan or get sold anywhere? Kayla Hayden could be off on loan again. It's not Kayla, is it? It's Kessler Hayden could be out on loan again. Who knows what the midfield will be? McGinn's been out on international duty. Kamara Raz. We'll have Samson, Irobenham, and you in centre midfield.
Yeah, well, I'll just drop in.
Yeah, man. Emi Buendia behind Danny Ings and either myself or Cameron Archer.
Strike force looks all right.
Mate, top quality. I'll get a trick at least. But yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? It's important to get minutes into the legs, as they say, get used to formations and ideas, get some of these youngsters a chance to see what they're made of, get the new signings used to what English grounds are like and English atmospheres and that. But I also think it's going to be very important that we get a win, because I think Steven Gerrard has got a big season ahead of him. The owners are going to want top 10 as a minimum.
Yep.
They're going to want European football. That's why Carlos has joined. That's why Kamara has joined, Coutinho, the rest of them, and breeding confidence from wins. And it doesn't matter whether you win in a training ground match, whether you win in a pre-season friendly at the Poundland Stadium, or whether you're beating Man City away. All of it helps with confidence, and it helps get that mentality and way of thinking. Gerrard's a winner, and that's what you'll want from the lads.
Yeah, and the 24-hour news cycle, especially in pre-season, people jump on anything. So if it's an embarrassing defeat, then there'll be some uncomfortable stories and headlines for the Villa players and management. You mentioned Ashley Young. Welcome back. We had a debate about Ashley Young in an earlier episode as regards whether we're going to re-sign him or not. Go and check it out in terms of what we were saying, because to summarize, what Will said happened. So go and have a listen to that to have our thoughts outlined for your listening or viewing pleasure. Player who isn't going to be there because he's been sold. Trezeguet has left the club this week off to Turkish climes. 9 goals, 64 games. I think the stats were important goals. Leicester in the League Cup, goals in the run in the first Premier League season, keeping us up. Just because Arsenal these score.
Yeah, and Palace.
At Palace. Yeah. So big goals. I think I'm going to hazard a guess most Villa fans are going to think the same thing. So I'll say it, and then you can all say how wrong I am. Thanks for the service. Big goals. In terms of goals kept us in the league, you could say. So you can't downplay that. In terms of signed by Dean Smith, Steven Gerrard comes in now, just not fit really in terms of what Gerrard wants to do. I mean, we got 3 seasons out of him. I mean, that's a fairly standard length of time, in terms of still in Egypt international, so still contributing at a high level. Wish him well. Thanks for the service. And if we end up playing a Trezeguet's team in a European game at some point in the future, and he's back at Villa Park, I'll stand up and give him a round of applause. So that's kind of my Trezeguet thoughts. Anything more controversial from you?
I'd boo him when he comes back with Trabzonspor just because he doesn't play for the Villa. No, I wouldn't. I agree. He played a vital role in keeping us up with 3 very important goals. Scored. It's interesting, isn't it? You mentioned that he scored 9 goals for us. Yeah, I wonder how many of the goals that he scored we can mention or remember. I mean, you've got the one against Leicester, which is probably his most popular goal in that semi-final. Great finish at the back post from El Mohammadi's cross.
Great cross.
Made in Egypt. Yeah, and the finish was sublime as well. You've got the goal against Arsenal, which was a thunderous volley right into the bottom corner. I remember watching that at yours, and we both went absolutely batshit crazy. The 2 goals against Palace, I completely forgot what they were like until I saw the highlight video. He scored against Liverpool in the 2-1 defeat when Liverpool were 1-0 down with 2 minutes left.
Oh, yeah.
If you remember, I was at Halesoe in town that day with my brother.
Is that the game he got injured?
No. That was at Villa Park. He got injured at Anfield the season after, I think, or later that season. No, the season after he got injured at Anfield, because it was the season that we beat them 7-2 at home. But yeah, apart from those goals, those 5, I don't know where the other 4 were scored. Maybe against Fulham, I want to say he got 1 in a 3-1. We all got 2 when we beat them at home. I'm
gonna guess based on absolutely nothing. Norwich. Scored a goal against Norwich at some time. I
think he did score against Norwich.
I mean, if you want to pick a player to score a goal, Norwich is a good spot. But yeah, I have to admit, off the top of my head, I cannot remember. He scored a League Cup in another game earlier on.
Who knows? Answers on a postcode. That's something on a postcode. Answers on a postcode or a postcard. Put it in the comments on YouTube or send us a tweet and let us know who Trezeguet scored against. But you're not allowed to look. Don't have a look. Put it out there. I'm going to go with 1 against Leicester, 1 against Liverpool, 1 against Arsenal, 2 against Palace, 2 against Fulham, didn't score against Norwich, got killed against Brentford. It's such a shame that was his last ever game for us with the sniper on the roof. The other 2 games, I'm going to go, he scored against Chelsea away when it got bounced up and hit him. We lost 2-1. And he scored against somebody, I reckon he scored against St Thomas Aquinas in a Kings Norton Boys derby. So I reckon.
There we go. Answers on a postcode or any other medium. And whilst we
write it in the air.
Write it in the same trajectory as El Hamadi cross, or a beautiful finish into the corner, whichever way the flow goes. And whilst we go off and check the answer, whilst you're not allowed to go and check the answer, you can go and check out our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, whereby as the preseason hots up, we will be keeping you up to date with all transfer news. Speaking of transfer news, Rory Wilson, he signed. I don't have anything to say about Rory Wilson apart from he scored a lot of goals at youth level. I didn't see any of them, but
I do. He's now our best Scottish player by a million miles.
Well, I will not rise to that particular debate, because what I'll be doing is I'll be going back on our audio providers to listen to previous episodes of the podcast on Google, Amazon, Spotify, listening to the ones where we were talking about how great John McGinn was, which is probably most of them, truth be told. Or you can check out our previous episodes on our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity. We will be back with you one way or another soon. I mean, in terms of this time next month, we'll probably be doing our preview for the first game of the season against Bournemouth away. I mean, things are coming hot and quick in terms of the preseason. So later on, type that into Google and see what comes up. So later on in the month, we're going to be having our Villa season preview. We'll be having our Premier League season preview. We'll be having a couple of guest stars on, hopefully, before, during, and after those episodes to talk about all things Villa and perhaps some other things as well. But in the meantime, before I pass you back over to Mr. Trinity himself, thank you very much for listening, watching, transcribing, commenting, subscribing, listening, other words. And I will be back with you soon. So cheers very much for now.
Yeah, once again, thank you very much for listening. And we hope to get our episodes out to you a lot hotter and quicker than normal. They'll be straight there on the postcode or written in the wind.
Fire hoses ready.
Mate, there's more chance of the North Stand being developed by the time we get an episode out. Though we have got a lot of exciting episodes lined up, as Baz says. We're going to have the Villa Academy from Twitter on our episode to talk about all of the youth players and what to expect from them going forward. We're going to get Connor Sherry on, Captain Fantastic, to have a chat with us about his life as an Aston Villa captain and an Aston Villa fan and what that means to him. We're also going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to do our Premier League preview or predictions at some point. We'll get maybe more of the gang on for that one. Who knows? We'll also be doing our kit review, not just the Villa kit, though. We're going to have a look at all of the home and away kits when they're released and rank them in order. We won't be discussing Blues or West Brom because they're not in the Premier League. But until next time, he's Villa till he dies, or so he tells me. I'm Villa till I die. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. Up the Villa.